So next up, we'll be checking out the Fat Electrician's the real genius, tank genius of World War II, Percy Hobo Hobart. This was recommended to me after I saw the Mark 14 video for those torpedoes from Drachenfell, and I think the phrase used was, remember how the Boo are horrible? Now we need to expose you to the British one that made them look competent. I don't know if this is the video they were referring to. I want to be wrong. Let me be wrong. Oh God, I'm probably not wrong. Let's see how this goes. Other than badly, probably.
I just wanted to know how the tanks made it onto the beaches at D-Day, and what I found instead is one of the greatest anti-hero stories of all time, and it
Anti-hero? Is this to do with the entire distraction or something else?
rewrote my understanding of history. Today we're talking about the man that quite literally wrote the book on armored warfare, a World War I veteran that was forced into early retirement because his fellow officers didn't like him very much.
I already like this guy. I don't even know what he did. I like him already. Because if you can piss off management, I am perfectly okay with anything you do.
But after German tanks rampaged through France and North Africa utilizing their new Blitzkrieg tactic, Winston Churchill himself would call upon this man to leave retirement and go toe-to-toe with the infamous German tank commanders.
How did Winston Churchill know him? Because I thought prior to start of World War II, wasn't Churchill a notorious drunk? How infamous was this guy where an infamous notorious drunk would already have that information? Oh God.
Erwin Rommel and Heinz Guderian. Ladies and gentlemen, the hero of D-Day that you've probably never heard of, Major General Sir Percy Cleghorn Stanley Hobart.
That's a real name? Cleghorn? I mean, I've heard Hobart before, in old-timey stuff, but I've heard it. Cleghorn. I did not know that was actually a name people used.
AKA Hobo. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me is an online subscription.
Okay, I'm not I don't get sponsored by these guys, but IRL, this is a really good service just for general internet security rather than with VPNs. It's probably worth doing. Here we go.
I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Percy Hobart was born in India in 1885 and joined the British military.
Oh, he was Indian. Oh, okay.
In 1902.
Also, I'm being told by Pilo that's a very British name. That's probably why I don't recognize it then. Oddly enough, I've heard Hobart, though.
He would then go on to fight in World War I. While there, in typical anti-hero fashion, he made a name for himself as being extremely effective, but unorthodox and disobedient at the same time. Because of this, many of the other...
I mean, can you imagine all the dumb people who are just in charge? If you're disobeying them, you're probably doing the right thing.
British officers don't really care for him. Despite that, he makes it through World War I, ends up earning himself a military cross, and then in 1919 he goes off to college. Graduates from college 4 years later.
This was before he went to college. Yeah, I guess he was a kid when he started. Oh dear God, that does explain the timeline. Oh God. Also, Martin, send me relayed your copy of Werewolf 20 edition has officially shipped. As did Changeling 20th. Oh God, you're getting into everything. For anyone wondering why I'm saying this, Martin in my chat right now, I'm going to pull him up so people can see it. This guy just bought every mage book from White Wolf. Not in edition, not all the books in said edition, all of them for a nearly 30-year-old franchise. And then he read them all as they arrived. Yeah, the shipping was slowing him down from finishing it. It's kind of absurd.
In 1923, he then volunteers to be an officer in the Royal Tank Corps. Now, he volunteered because most people did not want this position. And that's because at this point in time, a lot of the high-ranking British officers didn't see the true potential that tanks and armored vehicles had. They simply viewed them as a single tool for trench warfare to get from...
Wait, people didn't? See, this is... Maybe it's just hindsight bias, because looking at tanks, knowing what they do now and thinking, this is really hard to shoot through with small arms, and we don't have as many big arms, and also we can make it airtight, so the gas warfare of World War I would be a lesser issue. How did people not see? Oh yeah, this is why people said this is going to be like the video about the Boo all over again, isn't it? Oh no.
one trench to the other, they didn't realize that one day it was going to replace cavalry. Percy Hobart, on the other hand, was a visionary and saw its true potential, and that's why he volunteered. Not only that, he was also very vocal about this opinion, and he would actually persuade a lot of the younger soldiers to believe the same thing, which honestly isn't a very hard sell. The new guy
Also because everyone on top of it is like, tradition! Followed by everyone who's actually there going, fuck your tradition, it literally killed Frank.
joins the army, and you're like, hey, quick question, did you want to ride a horse into battle, or did you want to drive a fucking tank? Okay,
I got a preference. Not going to battle, but also because I'm a coward.
everybody's picking a tank. And over time, his advocacy
Also, Tara mentioned British be British, especially military nobility. Oh, this still was based on military commissions for nobility. I didn't realize that was even the case in World War I. I thought that had already phased out. Oh. And David mentioned people viewed them as too slow and heavy to transport. Compared to a horse, yes. But compared to not being shot, I think it's worth it. But that's my take. Yeah. And I guess it was also Hobo's take as well.
for change ends up making a lot of the old cavalry officers end up hating him because he's kind of trying to make them obsolete. And you have to remember, at this point in time, the British officer corps is very, very cliquey, like they're socialites and gentlemen, and they
People in a position of power having cliques. I'm so glad this was an old-timey problem and not all of the time currently everywhere. If I need to include /s in this statement, I am so jealous of you.
have to, you know, conduct themselves in a certain manner and all that BS. So when Hobart comes in and starts ruffling feathers, it upsets the entire officer corps, and they all pretty much hate him at this point. Despite that, he knows he's right, and he just keeps working on pioneering new tactics and new applications for tanks. Now, one of the few legitimate concerns about having tanks on the battlefield at this point in time was that they were basically autonomous. And what I mean by that is, once the tank crew got their orders, hopped in the tank, and took off, that was it, because tanks didn't have radios and stuff yet.
So if you wanted to basically be your own boss, you were a tanker. What would you call someone in a tank? Like a tanker? A tanky? Tank commander? Tank swabby? I don't know what they call them at this time period. Now you call them fodder, but that's completely different.
This point in time. So once they left, you couldn't call them back.
Also, is that what tanks look like at this time period? I have no idea what movie this is from, by the way.
You couldn't change up the mission. They couldn't communicate with anybody outside of that tank. So Hobart comes out and he's like, well, hey, rather than not using tanks because they can't communicate, how about we just, I don't know, put some radios inside of them? So he
My God, how dare you make the obvious choice? Oh, according to Croc, it was tanker. Oh.
Fights tooth and nail for like a year to make that happen, gets radios put in all of his tanks, and then trains his guys how to run battle drills, being able to actually communicate with each other and the chain of command. And guess what?
It probably worked out well, huh?
Works exactly how you would expect it to. I mean,
and I'm assuming people then hated that he worked, so they made sure to get rid of him.
This is the upside down ketchup bottle of the tank.
Also, I'm being told by Croc that is a French tank. Oh.
World. Like, somebody finally came out with this idea, and everybody's like, how? How did I not come up with that $1 billion idea? At this
I mean, to be fair, the easiest ideas are the ones no one bothers to think about in advance because it's so obvious, you kind of just gloss over it. For example, not the best option, the little cardboard sleeve you see on almost every coffee shop. The guy who invented that has the patent. They don't need to work because that is still, as far as I know, fully in effect. Every one of those is a bit more to him.
Point, all the junior officers and lower enlisted are like, holy shit, this is awesome. And all the older, more experienced officers that already hated Hobart lose their shit because he's now actively making them look stupid.
What are...
I mean, they were doing that themselves, but now it's just more obvious.
Those? You are wearing his merchandise!
The Hobart drink. Oh, I love this. And also, yeah, I see why people said this is worse than the Boo. The Boo is just incompetent. This is dumb people intentionally weaponizing stupidity.
So once that gets worked out...
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised he didn't edit in someone saying a smoothie, because it would be perfectly fitting.
He starts developing legitimate battle strategies and drills and training his men on how to conduct tank warfare, how to integrate tanks with infantry, really laying the groundwork for what would become modern tank warfare. This goes on for a couple of years, and then in 1927, he ends up being a co-respondent in a divorce case. Now, I'll be honest, I had to Google what that meant, but apparently...
Co-respondent? I don't even know what that means. I mean, he had to look it up as well, so I'm not the only one. Also, I'll pull up your comment. Swarm, 1, thank you very much. 2, hey, it's me, the Ultra Gold guy here, by the way. Do HTP, go before spoilers. I am trying to ignore anyone talking spoilers, and if anyone here is a mod and they start spoiling things, please block it, because I'm looking at that as the last video for the day. But we are checking it out, damn it. Also, just should probably arrange this right now. Yeah, I resized it for the Humanity Fuck Yeah video. There we go. That looks about right.
Apparently, co-respondent is the fancy British officer polite way of saying Percy Hobart was banging somebody else's wife. Her name...
Oh! That's why he got called to court. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Was Dorothea Field, and of course, she was another British officer's wife.
Naughty, naughty.
After that divorce is finalized, Dorothea and Percy get married pretty much immediately, and
I see why this guy probably has, I'm assuming the guy he took the wife from is the only one so far who has a decent reason for getting rid of Percy. Because Hobart literally fucked that up, but everyone else is doing it for stupid reasons. Okay.
The rest of the officer corps now absolutely hates him, and they actively try to get him kicked out of the military because this is not gentlemanly behavior. They're not able to get it done. Hobart stays in the military and continues to develop and refine armored warfare.
Oh, that didn't even work at that point. Usually when you have enough idiots who all agree on something, it just happens.
One of the things he starts to do is look back into history and see if there's any lessons that he can apply to tank warfare. And one of the things that he hones in on is the Mongols. The Mongols were so successful because they utilized cavalry to strike deep into enemy territory at strategic points, weakening their entire empire. And
oddly enough, this might just be me playing it wrong, but in war games with heavy armored functions that move very fast, which is what a tank does in a battlefield, that is exactly what you do there as well. Does this mean that you should actually look into history for how to play war games? I know it's a stupid takeaway from this, but I also can't say it's wrong. Also, am I the only one wondering why there's a Yowie paddle in his room? Maybe it's the lighting, like the shotgun makes sense. The Yowie paddle, I have questions.
Hobart says, what if I could do the same thing, but with tanks? And to anybody that knows a lot about history, that sounds an awful lot like the German Blitzkrieg tactic, and that's because it is. Yeah, the Germans didn't come up with the Blitzkrieg, Percy Hobart did. Heinz Gedermann, the German tank commander that is the architect of the Blitzkrieg, is well known to have had every single paper that Percy Hobart published.
So the Blitzkrieg was the British's fault. Does that technically mean Britain by proxy got the assist on taking down France? Okay.
Translated into German, and he kept that with him everywhere he went. Yeah, the infamous German tank commanders Rommel and Gedermann didn't revolutionize armored warfare. They just copied Hobart's homework. So if Percy...
I guess they're calling him Hobo because he goes everywhere. Oh, God.
Hobart is the actual genius behind the Blitzkrieg. Why don't most people know that? Why does everybody give Germany credit, and why didn't the British use it first? Or at the...
I'm assuming because the Brits don't want to give him credit for anything because they were in charge, and they didn't like him when he had power.
At the very least, know that it was a possibility when it was used against them in France when they got their asses beat in 6 weeks. That is because the British chain of command hated the man that came up with the Blitzkrieg, and for that reason made the entire strategy a failure. In 1934, Britain conducted a large training exercise where Percy Hobart was going to be allowed to try out his new methods. If you don't know, when you're conducting a large military training exercise, you have like Team A, Team B, and then you...
And either this is one of those situations where someone pulled, let's go with rank, and said, hey, you're not allowed to use that tactic, or 2, they know what tactic you're going to pull and they explicitly plan around it to make it look like a failure. Oddly enough, this has happened within the last 30 years, IRL, because prior to the war in Afghanistan, after 9/11, there were drills done using more unconventional warfare, asymmetric warfare, and they were proven very effective. And the person doing them was not allowed to keep doing that because they were told, this is not how it happens. Don't do this. Despite the fact that it was literally indicative of everything that was about to happen for like the next 20 years.
Have the umpires, so to speak.
I wish I remembered who was doing it. I only remember that it was the Navy. I don't remember the rest. That's actually disappointing because it's an old memory at this point.
You have the people making sure that both teams are doing the right things, saying, yeah, that works, no, that doesn't work, declaring who wins and who loses. The umpires conspired against Hobart because they were military officers and they didn't like him, and basically made his entire strategy fail. Fast forward 1937, Hobart is given command of the 1st Armored Division, Great Britain's first modern tank division. Because of this, a bunch of British officers promptly throw a bitch fit and try to get Hobart kicked out of the military. Again, it fails again, but the chain of command has to come up with a compromise, and that compromised is to take Hobart and send him down to Egypt, where he can take command of the 2nd Armored Division.
Isn't that where... Oh, that was probably unironically a good choice because it gets him someplace where that would actually be useful. How... I'm assuming these people all got very decorated after the war and became politicians.
Which was basically, we're going to ship him halfway across the world and then pretend he doesn't exist. Out of sight, out of mind, right? So Hobart gets down to Egypt and it is a complete shit show because tanks are effectively replacing cavalry at this point. So it's cavalry officers that are running tank divisions, and they have chosen to not read any of the literature or training material that he has spent the last decade developing.
And I'm pretty sure Northern Africa would include Egypt. I'm not good at geography, but I think I got that part right. So this is probably somewhere where Rommel would be, and we'd already clarified Rommel was reading Hobart's stuff. Yeah. I can't believe they fucked around so hard. The incompetent leader class might have unironically lucked into being right by sending him there. I guess a broken watch is right every now and again. If you happen to throw the hand from the watch into a dumpster fire where it gets spit out, reatomized into an incomprehensible shape that just happens to point to the right answer. Sure, why not? It's bound to happen eventually. Happens to everyone.
And they are operating tanks like they are dragoons. If you don't know, a dragoon is kind of like cavalry, except it's not. They ride in on horses and then they dismount and go into battle on foot. And that's what the 2nd Armored Division is.
I don't... How? Arrogance and unearned self-gratification is the only reason I can think right now to justify this. This is so many levels of stupid. You get out of the well-defended mobile position on foot. And Orsa, it's not a tank, it's an APC. Yeah. But it was a tank, though. That's the crazy part. It wasn't an APC at the time. It was still a tank.
Being trained to do. They roll up in the tank, and then the gunner and the loader stay in the tank while the rest of the crew gets out and fights like infantry while being a static target instead of a moving target, which is the entire point of being a fucking tank. The chain of command is effectively trying to do everything they can to make tanks look bad and ineffective, because by extension it makes Hobart look bad and
because they were literally willing to fuck over the war effort for petty reasons. Of course it was being done by petty reasons. So they're not just doing bad decisions, they're intentionally doing bad decisions because it doesn't work. So it gets tanks to look bad because their pet project looks better by comparison this way. Yeah, this seems perfectly accurate to reality.
Effective. The running joke when Hobart gets there is that the Egyptian force is the Egyptian farce and the mobile division is the immobile division. But when Hobart shows up, he turns the entire thing around. Between 1930 and 1940, he trains this entire division how to actually conduct tank warfare, and they get super effective at it. And the men absolutely love him. Because Percy
Is this before or after? I'm assuming this ends with one of them accidentally having a training accident. Because at this point, the level of weaponized incompetence during an actual hot war It literally just sounds like someone's going to, oh no, we accidentally said on the radio the exact coordinates and firing characteristics of exactly what model of tank he's currently sitting in, and you should probably hit it with artillery from long range. I can't believe we said that over the radio on an open channel in German. What were the odds? Distraction. So Cass, I talked about the rules of engagement, is probably what we meant. Kane actually plays before. I just found out that Tom Bloom, OG creator, approved their Kane gameplay on Blue Sky. Ooh, that's cool. I actually used to have Blue Sky. I forgot my password. I used to just post all like my model painting stuff there. Yeah, probably should get back to that someday.
Hobart is not only a great teacher, but he actually wants every man under his command to understand what they are doing and why they are doing it. When at this point in time,
that's just not British. That's just unpersonable. Management everywhere just had a sudden pang of utter loathing hearing those words. People undering me knowing why they're doing things? Oh, then they could say why it's bad, and that's never allowed.
Many other officers don't care about that. They just want you to shut up and follow orders. But Percy Hobart wants you to know what.
I have worked with so many people like that where it's, I don't care if you think my rule is dumb, you do it regardless, fuck you. Right before they are called out because they were doing the dumb. And now it's your fault for listening to them even though they gave you the order.
What you should be doing and why you should be doing it. That way, if the chain of command ever fails, you can make intelligent decisions regarding what needs to be done. In short, Percy Hobart treats his men like they're grown-ass men, and they absolutely love him for it. And because of that, he gains overwhelming support from the junior officers and enlisted men, and he becomes immensely popular.
No, don't like that.
Senior officers, probably. I think Tom Scott might be too nice of an example to compare him to.
And because of this, they finally force him out of the military because they sent him down to...
I'm sorry. They forced him out of the military when he was showing results during the war. I thought this happened at a different time. No, apparently not. This is so many levels of dumb. Oh my God.
Africa intentionally sabotaged him, and yet again, he's managed to turn the entire situation around and turns it into a positive thing. So they just end up getting him fired. In 1940, he is forced into early retirement. On his final departure from Egypt, the men of the 2nd Armored Division lined the entire road to wish him farewell as their sign of how much they actually respected this man. So Percy...
I'm assuming this is how Winston Churchill hears about him. Probably from everyone else complaining in the posh upper society about how much they hated this hobo man, and finally were able to remove him because he made them look stupid. Yes. And yes is very much intentional and required to do the accent, apparently.
He goes back home, but still wanting to be involved in the military, he joins the Home Guard, which is like the British equivalent of the National Guard. And he gets busted down from Lieutenant General to Corporal, which if you don't know military ranks is like going from CEO to front desk receptionist. Not that
I mean, unironically, that would probably be an upside for most corporations to get rid of the people at the top and put them in a position where they actually have to do something of value. But maybe that's just my opinion.
I'm trying to talk bad about receptionists, but I'm trying to give you an accurate depiction of what a drastic change in authority this is. 5 months after Hobart's forced into retirement, the German military rolls into France with tanks utilizing...
Okay, so I was mistaken on the timeline because I'm terrible at numbers and dates. This was prior to World War II when this is happening in Egypt. Okay, so it was mostly still drills and just knowing what they're doing. It wasn't a hot conflict yet. Although, wasn't there fighting prior to World War II? Like smaller regional conflicts? I could be mistaken. I know there was in Spain. I'm not sure about the rest of Africa, for example.
The Blitzkrieg tactic that Percy Hobart designed and completely stomps the British and the French army in a matter of 6 weeks. Erwin Rommel then goes and proceeds to rampage through North Africa, and the only people that even kind of slow him down are Hobart's men of the 2nd Armored Division that is now known as the 7th Armored Division, aka the Desert Rats. At this point, Winston Churchill starts asking...
I'm assuming they were called that because people in charge hated Hobart, and the people loyal to him were utterly demeaned because of it. Oh, and according to Tensu, it was part of World War II. Oh, okay. So I wasn't wrong about it being a hot war when they did the shenanigans.
Questions and realizes what his officer corps has done, and he personally calls Percy Hobart back into service and awards him the rank of Major General. At which point, all of the officers throw a fit yet again, saying that he's...
And if we're really lucky, they quit in protest. Maybe even commit seppuku. I mean, sure, that's a Japanese idea, but we can be hopeful before we're clarified we're wrong.
57 years old, he's too old to serve in the military, and they try to get him med boarded out. Winston Churchill yet again intervenes and stops the med board and issues this statement, quote, "The high commands of the army are not a club. It is my duty to make sure exceptionally able men, even though not popular with their military..."
I think they probably hated Churchill just because it's not a club, or not a club right there. That phrase right there would piss them off utterly. Granted, if he said that anywhere, any military, anywhere where people are in charge would probably think that, because, yeah, high school never ends, man. It's the same people in every position everywhere. Nothing changes.
Contemporaries are not prevented from giving their services to the crown. Translation, quit being a bunch of catty bitches, we need this guy. By the time all that political...
Unless he fires them, it's never going to help. In fact, maybe just a little insubordination for trying.
BS gets done, Rommel is back in Europe, and he has been tasked with fortifying the Atlantic Wall, the German defense from Norway to Spain, in case the Allies should invade. Rommel reinforces it with 260,000 men manning over 15,000 concrete bunkers and artillery positions. The entire thing is coated with barbed wire. It has anti-vehicle emplacements to prevent tanks and other vehicles from getting up the beach, and they lay...
Yeah? Wasn't something about this... Oh, I wonder if he actually is going to play into the distraction option.
Over 200 million mines. And the man put in charge of figuring out how to penetrate those defenses is none other than Percy Hobart. He has re-entered the picture, and he knows that these kids have been stealing his homework. He comes in with the complete dad energy.
Because he literally knows the book they're reading because he wrote it. It's literally, oh, of course I know this man. I'm him. Energy.
Of, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know. He takes command of the 79th Tank Regiment and gets to work immediately. It is now Major General Hobart and Erwin Rommel going toe-to-toe in a battle of wits that will determine the fate of the world. And obviously, we're going to handle this issue with tanks, which brings us to problem number one. How are we going to get tanks on the beach? How are we going to get a 70,000...
Oh, is this where amphibious vehicles came about? Oh.
...pound hunk of metal with a gun from the boat, through the water, onto the beach.
Also, I'm being told it was originally the British against the Italians in North Africa, according to Orr. Operation Fortitude, and it was a separate video according to Croc in the chat. That makes sense.
Obviously, we just got to make a tank float, and it can't be that hard because battleships float, right? I mean, those are big and heavy and made out of metal, so why can't we do the same thing with a tank? All you have to do is displace enough water, and bada bing, bada boom, you're floating. So all we got to do is increase the surface area of a tank. So they take a gigantic tube of wax canvas, wrap it around the tank, and then have inflatable tubes that when they inflate it, the canvas stands straight up, and basically it is a tank inside of a giant canvas tube. And
isn't the obvious issue with this that if you shoot the tank's bubble, it deflates? Maybe I'm missing something.
And we'll just add a couple of little boat propellers on the back of the tank so it'll push itself through the water. Problem solved. Sounds stupid, works terrific. So now that we've got the Sherman duplex drive amphibious tank figured out, the next problem...
Oh shit, it actually worked. Oh, because it was displacing enough water that even a hole would probably hold out long enough. Oh, okay. And that was Operation Fortitude, was the fake invasion to distract Normandy. Or from Normandy. Yeah.
What is the beach made out of? Are the tanks going to get hung up and stuck? Because we can't have that happening either. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a submarine. We're going to send them out. They're going to wait till night. Once night falls, the sailors are going to go ashore, gather up a bunch of the dirt from the beach, and figure out what it's made out of. It's made out of blue clay. Probably the worst possible thing because those tanks will for sure get stuck in clay. So
really? Oh. See, this is me just not knowing anything about soil composition and how it interacts. I just know that if I see something that looks squishy, don't drive in it. Again. Yeah. Also, Tutor, imagine how Churchill felt when he realized his officers were actively getting rid of productive people because they think like high school mean girls. I'm assuming the exact phrase going through his mind would be, oh, God damn it again. Because that is probably not limited just to the military class of upper society. Yes.
Obviously, problem number 2, how on earth are we going to get the tanks through all this blue clay? It would be really nice if we had a road. You know what? Fuck it. We're just going to bring our own road. Ladies and gentlemen, the bobbin. That is a Churchill tank with a gigantic spool of canvas that has metal rods.
I have literally never seen a picture of this. How have I never seen a picture of this? This is unironically kind of awesome. And I legitimately wish we had things like this IRL, because that seems like a really funny concept in any type of fiction. How do we need a road? We build it on site.
Inside of it that literally goes ahead first and lays down a road for all the other tanks to drive on right up the beach. Again, it looks really silly, but it works super well. At this point, all the other people that hate Hobart are starting to make fun of him. They're starting to refer to these tanks as Hobart's funnies, but they have no idea how important these tanks are going to end up being. Hobart is over here.
I'm assuming me not knowing about it is due to the same petty bullshittery, not to be confused with the funny bullshittery, but the stupid bullshittery of, we don't like this guy, so we're going to ignore this never actually happened.
Actually trying to save the world by any means necessary. He realizes it doesn't matter how cool it looks, he just needs it to work, and he only needs it to work once. Meanwhile, all of his other contemporaries are worried about looking good while they do it. Okay, problem number 3, marching right
Cluster, Custer.
up the beach. Now we have to worry about the mines and the barbed wire. We can't be blowing the tracks off our tanks with mines. We need to clear the barbed wire for the men, and we don't want the barbed wire getting hung up.
Also, I'm just going to pull this comment up for Attican. Don't mean to be mean to high school girls. They're still in puberty. These men were grown-ass adults and mentally fully developed and act like that. Or should act like that. Here's the thing. Maturity is the ultimate lie. You never actually grow up. Your brain might be done growing or adapting, but you're just as dumb as you've always been. You just are better at lying to yourself and saying you've learned from the past mistakes you've already forgotten.
In the tracks of the tank. What are we gonna do? Things are about to go from looking weird and silly to looking terrifying and awesome, because the plan for this is to eat the barbed wire and blow up the mines in front of us using the Sherman Crab, aka the flail tank. Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, in theory, we have now figured out how to sail a fucking tank a mile through the ocean, build a road in front of us as we drive it up the beach, cut through barbed wire, and detonate mines. The only defensive structure left is the enormous concrete.
Oh, okay, that's actually fascinating. So the way it works is this is a rear-mounted attachment, so they're driving backwards to do it. Okay. Yeah, or maybe they're driving forwards and the tank is just spun all the way around. Huh. And since you're taking shots on this is an extra blade of armor because it's not integral to keeping the people inside alive. So it's probably just extra metal in the way of shots hitting you. Yeah.
Through barbed wire and detonate mines. The only defensive structure left is the enormous concrete bunkers with Germans inside shooting machine guns and mortars. What are we going to do about them? Because normal tank guns aren't going to take those out effectively. Which is a pretty simple solution. If your gun isn't big enough, just get a bigger gun.
Have you ever just seen something and it just fills you with irrational glee? Yeah. I'm not a guard player in 40K because I don't hate my wallet that much. Custodian's player for life. But I've seen the mock-ups were basically based on this, and yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the petard. It is essentially a mortar that is the size of a propane tank, affectionately dubbed the flying dustbin.
Yeah.
You call that big?
Yeah, the thing's huge.
That explains a lot.
What is that supposed to mean?
You told me 8 inches.
And you told me you took installments.
I didn't know what that meant.
That's your problem. Interrupting my history.
I need to save this entire little skit right here and then just make sure my wife believes it. What? I said nothing.
Time. And if the flying dustbin doesn't work, this one will. The most terrifying of all of the creations, the crocodile, aka the flamethrower tank, pulling a armored trailer with 500 gallons of jungle gel.
Flamethrowers? Oh, yeah! Because if you can't shoot out the window without dying, you're probably not going to shoot out the window.
capable of shooting flames over 250 yards. So if everything goes according to plan so far, the enemy is either going to be dead or retreating. Here's the problem. Once the enemy starts retreating, they're also going to start blowing up all the bridges behind them, making it very hard to maneuver vehicles, especially tanks, across ravines, rivers, ditches, and so on. So what are we going to do once they blow up the bridges? Fuck it, I guess we'll just bring a bridge from home, right? No, I'm not messing with you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Is this the inflatable bridges I saw, or something even dumber?
Bridge tank.
What? Oh, never mind. They just brought a bridge. Huh. I wonder how many of these guys from this decided to do modular buildings because they had experience doing while being shot at, and this now seemed relaxing. Also, I've been being told to look up the flamethrower tank and the Russian fridge tank. Oh, God.
Oh, man, it went from this is kind of silly and
Also, Mandatory mentioned video game flamethrowers have their range way too short. Yeah, and if we had games with accurate shotguns, it would be the same problem, but also much less funny. Because a sawed-off does exactly what everyone thinks every shotgun does.
There's no way that's going to work, to, oh my God, that's terrifying, to, okay, now you guys are just showing off. And
yeah, also, it's a lot of just heavy metal. If you shoot that, it's a wasted bullet.
I know what you're thinking, that's great, but what if it's just a little tiny anti-tank ditch or a ravine, not something that really necessitates an entire
Pick it up,
bridge?
do it again.
Well, that's easy. Ladies and gentlemen, the fascine, aka a bundle of sticks.
Oh yeah, because you just drive on the
plan is
sticks.
set. Hobart has accounted for absolutely everything in this.
Where did they get the sticks, though? Because I thought Britain didn't have big forests to draw from. Weird thing to focus on.
Plan is for sure gonna work. But here's the thing, you've probably seen a bunch of movies or played a bunch of video games that incorporate the landing at Normandy on D-Day, and you've never seen any of this stuff. So why is that? That's because most movies and video games, like Saving Private Ryan, for example, take
place in the American detachment, which didn't involve the British commander, probably. That's my assumption. Let's see if I'm wrong.
Place on Omaha Beach, which was one of the American beaches, and the Americans didn't have access to all of Hobart's tanks. Why is that? Well, some people believe that the American leadership saw it and said that it was stupid, not gonna work, and they didn't want anything to do with them.
I mean, I believe that. Dumb people in charge. We've seen the boo.
However, that's a myth and it's completely untrue.
Oh shit, really? Wow, my automatic assumption that people in charge would make dumb decisions was not wrong. It was completely wrong. That's even better. I like this for a change. How is it going to get worse?
Bradley saw Hobart's inventions and requested all of them. Unfortunately, not enough could be made in time, and the only thing the American forces would be given for D-Day was the Sherman DD duplex drive amphibious tanks. And
I mean, it's better than nothing. Also, Croc, talk about Russian weird tanks. Look up graphic for A40KT. You won't regret it. Have fun. Remind me after the video. I might do it then.
the reason that Hollywood focuses on Omaha Beach is because it's the most dramatic. It's the one beach of the 5 where absolutely everything went wrong. And believe it or not, one of the main things that went wrong was that the Sherman duplex drive tanks didn't make it. They got released too far off the beach and the seas were too rough, and a lot of them ended up sinking. Luckily, only 5 tankers drowned. The rest were able to escape and get picked back up by the boats. But
no, at least that's good. But also because they're not used to deploying those things, they don't have the guy who designed them, so they probably don't know the right way to deploy them. Yeah. Also, Siren mentioned Airier, thinking all of Europe are in Scottish-Irish grasslands. They fed their sheep. They have plenty of forests. Hunting was a European pastime for nobles, remember? Yeah, but I thought a lot of that was occupied by Germany at this time. Like, literally, isn't it just mostly, not Europe, but Britain that has a lumber shortage? Or did that not happen yet? Maybe I'm overthinking this, or maybe it's just not as many sticks as I thought it might be.
it was a huge issue not having tanks on Omaha Beach, and it is part of the reason that Omaha was the deadliest beach on D-Day. If you pay attention and you know what you're looking for, it's even referenced in the Saving Private Ryan movie.
No armor has made it ashore. We got no DD tanks on the beach. Dog 1 is not open.
So just so we're
Oh, shit. Also, just gonna out myself on this one. That's the most of Saving Private Ryan I've ever seen. Never saw the movie. Yeah. Also, I'm being told Britain has forests, and that was much later. Ah. Wait, Tensu mentioned Scotland used to have rainforests? That is news to me. Mostly because I know almost nothing about Scotland.
We're all on the same page. The reason most
yeah, it's
people
part
have
of
never
Britain, isn't
seen
it?
or heard about these things is because they weren't at Omaha Beach, and Hollywood focuses on Omaha Beach because it was the deadliest, most brutal battle. But the reason that it was the deadliest battle was quite literally in part due to the fact that Hobart's funnies weren't there to help the Allies fight. These tanks are quite literally a victim of their own success. To give you an example of how big of an impact they had on the other beaches, the next deadliest beach after Omaha is Juneau, and it had less than half the casualties. But Hobart and the 79th Armored Division's contributions aren't done on D-Day. At this point, Hobart decides rather than keeping all of his men together as one unit, like pretty much every other type of armored unit did, he decided that he was going to split them up and attach them and their specialty tanks to all the other units of the Allied forces.
To infect everyone else with his horrible thought process of actually thinking the monster. Also, according to Delirium, Britain was in fact outproducing Germany. Now, that's kind of fascinating. And Delirium mentioned it's similar latitude to the Canadian boreal rainforests. I did not know there were rainforests in Canada. Mostly because I don't know much about Canadian geography at all, because, I mean, I'm American. I barely know my own geography.
Essentially turning his tank division into the special forces of tanks. You need to clear some mines, here's the crab. You need to scare some Germans, here's the crocodile. By the end of World War II, the Germans were so scared of the crocodile flamethrower tank that they would start...
I mean, in all honesty, though, tank with flamethrower at significant range is something most people should be terrified of. I would be, and I'm a coward, so that doesn't say much, though.
To surrender at the mere sight of it. The 79th Armored Division and Hobart's funnies fought all the way through the European theater, and when they finally came up to Germany, the first Allied forces to cross the Rhine into Germany did it in Hobart's duplex drive Sherman tanks. Because Hobart's funnies and the 79th Armored Regiment were spread out amongst all the other units in the European theater, every time a unit did something special, credit was given to that unit, and the contributions by Hobart's men, and the Hobart funnies would go unnoticed and unrecognized. So in conclusion, this was a story of Major General Percy Hobart, the man that pioneered modern tank warfare, the man that trained the men that beat Rommel in North Africa, the actual inventor of the Blitzkrieg tactic, and one of the most important architects of D-Day and the Allied advance through Europe.
So basically what I'm hearing is he is a man who was so ahead of his time that people actively tried to lose a war so they wouldn't be outcompeted by him. That would do it, man.
In the pages of history, he is a victim of his own success because everywhere he wasn't was such a catastrophic shit show that it monopolized the spotlight, and everywhere he was, things went so smooth that it wasn't worth reporting, so he went unnoticed. When people think of tank warfare in World War II, way too many people think of Erwin Rommel and Heinz Guderian, when in reality, they should be thinking of Percy Hobart, and I hope
I'm honestly surprised more Brits haven't started crowing about that because it's completely deserved. And I'm certain a lot of that does come down to the same level of pettiness the people in charge had prior. Yeah. Ooh, also, remember, I'm going to pull up your comment. Lumber was short in Britain due to overharvesting leading up to during the Industrial Revolution. Only 5% of forests survive. Damn. Also, Goldie mentioned Canadian geography is messed up depending on where you're at. I practically live in a desert with like cacti and stuff, but like 5 or 6 months a year, it's covered in snow. Damn. Although considering Antarctica is also a desert, yeah, that kind of makes sense though.
this video helps with that. Thanks
Quack,
for
quack,
watching.
boom.
Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over the fatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Quack bang, not quack quack boom. Going to be a bit at the end, or we got... Nah, he's just ending this one. Damn. Okay. On the one hand, I was told there'd be something more infuriating than the boo, and they were accurate because, oh dear God, active weaponization of incompetence is definitely one of my triggers, man. Oh, that is just inducing. On the other hand, it came with someone who is really freaking cool. So it's like, but I have mixed feelings right now. Yeah. Also, Raw mentioned Britain is actually terrible in reporting their success. It helps push a lot of the myth of the German war machine. Yeah. Which is funny, considering I don't know many people in Germany who like talking about their successes in the previous war. Who I actually respect respect. Let's put it that way. I've met a lot of people who I don't respect who like talking about it, but that's different. There is so much going on right now, and all of it is just... I'm going to look on the positive side and say, this is really cool. We got to find out a bit of lore that is mostly hidden because the guy succeeded so much everyone else forgot. And I kind of love that. That's just good. And the rest of it I'm just going to ignore because... yeah. This is fun, man. I love it when the Fat Electrician really gets into a story that has a lot of depth. And it's like, yeah, here's the obvious thing that everyone ignores because it's just not as flashy, because it actually worked. If someone did another movie about this, it would have to be an anti-establishment movie, always focusing on, hey, here's this guy who has an idea, and everyone else in charge hates it. It would almost be an afterthought when you get to World War II, because the actual villain wouldn't be the Germans in this one. In fact, they'd be in the weird position of actual Nazi Germany being the people going, this is a good idea. We should use it. In the one thing where it brings up Rommel, and that's just a weird phrase to ever say. Yeah. I don't know if Rommel was a Nazi as well. Mostly because I've never really been into the African campaign nearly as much, so I have very little knowledge of what happened there. But this is cool, man. So basically what I'm saying is, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.